What's good, y'all? Welcome to Outside the Clutch. This is episode 51. We're going to have another great person from the community from up in Canada with us tonight. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been kind of watching his journey since I came back to the hobby industry, whatever you want to call it. And I never really put two and two together between Blackheart Exotics and Mike's Rat Shack, which I don't know if anyone else has had that issue, but I definitely had that issue. So I'm very excited to talk to Michael tonight. I think it's going to be a great freaking time. I think we're going to get a lot of information. Before we jump into him, though, we're going to talk about it. If you watched last week's video, I kind of went off. Billy kind of went off. I had to blow some steam. I appreciate y'all that kind of reached out and kind of brought me back to. It's what I love about this community. Sometimes you gotta let it out and make things known. But I don't like to focus on negative. I like to keep things like kind of on the positive side. So we're gonna move on from that. But I just want to let you all know, those that reach out, I appreciate you. Stuff happens. You know what I mean? Let's get to it. If you want to be one of the best in the industry, if you even want to be a brand in the industry, you have to take care of your animals the best way possible, and you cannot take care of your animals without the proper equipment. Here at Outside the Clutch, we're honored to be sponsored by VivTech. Are you ready for innovation? Tired of the same boring product that's been used for 30 years? Ready to give your reptiles and amphibians the UV they really deserve? Then look no farther than VivTech. Their 3-watt LED bulbs provide the UV rays your animals have been missing. With 3 bulbs to fit your pet's climate needs, plus a dimmable feature, it's the only bulbs we use for UV. And it's the only bulb with a 2-year warranty in the industry. Plus now you can monitor all your pet's husbandry from your phone 24/7 with their sensors, and even ship your customers' animals in their custom bags. So what are you waiting for? Go to VivTechProducts.com today, use code FCLUTCH0322 for 15% off, and provide your animals the best care they've ever had. A lot of people have a lot of substrate they like, but here at Outside the Clutch, we only use one substrate. Are you ready for the best coconut substrate in the game? Then you gotta get ReptiChip. First off, it's America's chip because it's veteran owned. Secondly, why wouldn't you want the best cocoa chip for your animals? Go to ReptiChip.com, use code FEELYCHIPPIN for 10% off up to 3 breeder blocks, or your entire order of Easy Hatch trays or any Redline Science equipment on the site. Limit 1 coupon per customer. Or reach out to me as a representative in the El Paso area, and don't forget to join the Reptilution, where all profits go to helping those in need within the reptile community. And finally, show me snakes. Like I've been saying, we just didn't have good footage, but you're going to get one of those crazy 90, early 2000 montage type commercials like I did for the other two. I'm looking forward to it. Here in about 2 weeks, we're going to be in Odessa reshooting film, and we should have a commercial put up after that. They will be in El Paso later in April, and they are literally all over the country, pending like far west coast, but literally like Texas and east, up north. You can find Show Me Snake shows everywhere. Go check out a Show Me Snake show by going to their website, showmesnakes.com, and checking out their schedule. All right, so let's kind of dive into who's here, and then we're gonna get into our guest. And I really want to say thank you to everyone that's been coming out recently. We're growing, we're doing great. I'm really excited to see where this year takes us specifically. There's a lot of good stuff coming throughout the year. So Arvin's new to the community. This dude's freaking everywhere. He was at Arlington, and I didn't get the chance to meet him, but I look forward to the future when we do get to talk a little bit. Jamie's family, I freaking love this lady. She was giving me a hard time because we weren't on time, but I freaking love Jamie. Y'all give her some love. RC Reptiles, that's 15 minutes of Lane family all day. Tamethyst Reptiles. Hi, Tammy. How you doing? Yeah, tech issues are just kind of what happens. It happens every now and then. Ain't a bad thing. It just happens. Cuddle Time. How you doing? I hope your last show was really good. It's been a while since I got to see you. I think Arlington. So hopefully we get to do some stuff with Melinda. I really, really appreciate her. Bosa balls. Keek. Let's see. Let's see. Eric's Morph Factory. What's good? Thanks for jumping in. I appreciate you. Creative Scales. The ma'am. The man? I don't know. I'm confused. Bearded Balls. That's my dude. That's my dude. Studio Cold Blood. Thanks for coming on. All right. As people jump in, we'll continue to say hi. We'll do our thing, but I already took a little bit of this man's time. I want to jump into what y'all are here for and what I'm kind of here for, which is to get to know Michael more and get to learn some stuff about not only breeding the reptiles, but really diving into rodents and getting the most that we can out of him. So put your hands together, give some love out to Michael from Blackheart Exotics. What's going on?
How's it going, man?
It's going good, brother.
Good, good. We got our tech issues figured out. Sorry to anybody in the live chat. That was on me.
It's okay. I'll take the blame. I should have put out an earlier time to meet up and do checks. It's all good. So man, let's kind of dive into it. Before reptiles and rodents, what made Mike?
Sorry?
So before you got into reptiles and rodents,
Yep.
What kind of brought you up and made you who you are today?
Who I am today. So I traveled the world as a kid. I was born in Australia, and by the time I was 3, we were living way up in northern Canada. So no roads up there, just icebreaker plains. Maybe 1,000 Inuit, 1,000 Cree Indian, and 4 or 5 white families. And we were up there teaching or running the Hudson's Bay Company or whatever the case may be. And maybe 13 years old, I moved down south and started chasing garter snakes and stuff like that around. So I consider myself to be worldly, but grounded to the London area for the past 30 years or so.
Okay. What was it like kind of growing up in Australia before you moved over?
Unfortunately, I was 3 when I moved. We got pictures and stuff like that, and it was cool bragging rights for most of my life. I used to mention a lot more often than I do these days, but I'm far removed from that, so I don't really have much memory of it anymore.
Oh man. Well, at least you got pictures. That's one thing.
Yeah. I was sitting in a stroller outside of our house in the outback, and a kangaroo came up, and I was feeding him candy, and he grabbed my candy and hopped off, and I cried about it. And I had a vague recollection. My earliest childhood recollection was a kangaroo messing with me and taking my candy. And I mentioned it to my mom one day in my late teens, and I said, hold on a second. And she ran and got a picture, and she had a picture of that exact kangaroo grabbing the bag and taking off. So that was pretty cool.
Heck yeah, that's freaking awesome. Like, you talk about like stealing kids' candies, but to have an actual kangaroo do it, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you
my
were
mom
13.
had a kookaburra as a pet when we lived there too.
Oh, that's freaking. I love those freaking laughs, man. At 13, you decided to start running around and being a terror in Canada and herping. What led you to that, and what do you think drove you towards the species that you went after? Like, what made you go towards reptiles versus like anything else that you could find in Canada?
So I love all animals. My family's just animal lovers. And when we lived up in the Arctic, my dad taught biology and science and just all types of cool courses. And he had a ball python up there. So I was probably 9 or 10. So you're talking 37, 38 years ago. A ball python way up in the Arctic in a glass tank. And he bred his own mice, and it was part of his school program to teach the kids about reptiles and about how to raise your own mice and feed them and stuff like that. So I always wanted a ball python, and as soon as I turned 16 and we were down in the south, I bought my own ball python and my own Burmese python probably a week later. And I just always like reptiles. Like I say, I like all animals. I've had parrots, fish. I bred frogs for years. I love plants. I'm a nature person all around. And if there was 1,000 morphs to all these other animals, I would be working with all types of other animals. But the ball pythons were just so captivating, man. The fact that you can turn it into a living art, like you're running a paintbrush across a snake and making it into something that's never been made before, and it's really addictive. And that's what drew me to ball pythons in particular. But I love all animals.
Yeah, I think that's important too. Like you found what kind of speaks to your soul, and the fact that you've chosen to work with that species is what's making you so great at that, and finding the intricacies in the morphs that you've decided to go through. Like these mutations can take so much time, and just to figure out and really work it to where you're bringing out the colorations or the exact pattern that you were kind of thinking of in your head. So I think your love for it really does speak to how well you've done with breeding them. I'm trying to pull it up right now, but give me just a second.
I appreciate that, man. In the beginning, we start, at least I did anyway. I start off by seeing the cool combinations that have been made already, and I covet them, and I want to make them. So it started with a bumblebee back in the day. The first bumblebee I saw, man, that was just crazy. I needed to make one of those. Until I bought a bumblebee and it wobbled like crazy and it bugged the hell out of me, and I got rid of it. But it started off like that, seeing somebody else make something, going, wow, that's cool as shit. I got to make one of those. And now more often than not, it's about making stuff that hasn't been made before, or that hasn't been seen or even thought of. And that's way more exciting to me, to try and pick a 3 or 4 genes, especially newer ones that haven't been put with all that much yet, and try and figure out what they're going to look like. And they often don't look like what you think. Like the one on the screen we just scroll back there, there's a redhead HRA. I did not expect that to look like that by any means, right in the middle on the left there. Yeah, it almost looks like a full red exanthic without the exanthic. It's a pretty cool outcome. I wouldn't have expected that.
It's very pretty. There's some stuff that you've touched. It's just like the JAG project that you've been working. I was trying to find some of the pictures of that. The JAG project really is kind of.
I haven't been posting it as much lately.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's like, I think that's what drew me to you at first, was I was seeing you pop that and I was like, how the heck is that design working that way? And then I was like, oh well, he's working Jaguar, and like no one works it.
That gene gave me a not just a financial boost, because it really did, but it gave me just an inner boost. Like I've been in the hobby for 7-8 years, always looking for a new cool gene, something I can afford. And when I got in on the early ground with that gene, it was just exciting to be one of the very few people that had it. And like I say, every single comp I can make has not been made before. So that was super exciting. And then nobody knew what it was. So when I started showing it to people, Jag, what's that? And they Google Jag, and pictures of non-Jags come up, and they want to argue with it and whatnot. But it's been a year or two removed from that, and people are starting to realize that Jag's a really cool gene, and I was super stoked that I got in that early.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just adds a different flavor. What do you think is one of the things that, with taking a lot of these new genetics that you have, like as far as like the tri-stripe and the redhead and the Jag, and you have a multitude of genetics that you have kind of you've been on the cusp of when it first came out, so you really get to put your spin on it right away. How do you think that's kind of helped you brand yourself, or brand like the look that you're trying to get in your animals?
I guess if anything, for branding, it shows that I'm on the cusp of what's new and what's happening. So I think I was the first one to bring redhead into Canada. I'm not going to take the credit for that. Eric Walsh turned me on to that gene before it became cool. Him and some other guys down there had the inside scoop that Justin was going to blow the lid off that project. And I didn't personally see it. I thought, well, that's kind of a normal looking animal, man. For the price you're asking, I'm not really seeing that. And he assured me, and then sure enough, Justin did produce some really cool stuff, and he showed it, and the price was up there and worth what he was selling it for. So I brought Redhead in, and I brought it in good timing. So I was able to turn $50,000-$60,000 profit inside of under a year from when I brought the first Redhead in. And then I held back a little army as well. So everybody's putting Redhead to clown because, Justin showed us that's the way to go. But I'm the first one to throw it in every other direction, all these genes, because clown's cool, but clown's not the end all and be all of everything. So I want to see Redhead Ultra Males. I want to see Redhead Ultra Pies. I want to see Redhead Hypo Clown Pies. It's all types of stuff, directions where we can take this gene besides just clown. So.
Oh, 100%. I think we sometimes get stuck in that thought process too. It's just a lot of us feel safer just kind of following and putting like one or two little differences in it instead of forging our own path. You know what I mean? I wish more people would. I absolutely believe that every project is essentially endless. We have the ability to really push it as far or as specific as we want. And then looking at different variations of how each genetics displayed, you can really line breed something to make it look exactly how you want, or at least in my eyes. But I agree with you. I think everyone wants to do everything clown just because they know that's an easy sell. Let's be honest.
Clowns are nice. Don't get me wrong. I love the clown route. But when you go on MORPHMARKET, there's 55,000 clowns. I'm just making that number up, but there's a lot of clowns. And so by going the other direction, it might not work. I am a gambler, and I'm gambling when I do that. And quite often these projects don't turn out, and it's like, oh shit, I should have put that to a clown and gone with the obvious bet and then cashed my check or whatever. But you don't know unless you try. So Super Redhead Ultra Male could turn out to be a really cool freaking snake. And if somebody doesn't waste the time, waste 4 or 5 tubs, raise up some snakes and try it, we'll never know. So that's what it's all about for me. I want to do what makes me happy. Chip away at 40% of my stuff I make has got to be what people are looking for and what's popular. But the rest is literally, if people are asking, what's that? That's what I'm interested in. That's what that is. It's something new. It doesn't even have a name yet or whatever. I'm always working with something new. I got saffron, super saffrons I'm working with right now. Nobody's heard of that yet either, probably. But.
What's one of those genetics where you wish that you just never touched it?
Oh shit. Probably some of the earlier stuff that's harder to get rid of later on. Like when I got in early, I bought a pinstripe, single gene pinstripe for $280. Bart Chuck's videos were gold to me. So whatever he was showing, that's what I was going out and buying. So, but I turned a profit on it all. I bred that pinstripe to, I don't remember what it was, could have been a normal. And I sold 4 or 5 of them, and I made my money back times 4 or 5, and I bought something else that was cool. But so I got a few lessers in the beginning. They're kind of hard to get out of your collection once you get them in. You don't want to get rid of your cool snakes, but you're trying to wean lesser out. Lesser, pastel, but I think pinstripe would be the number one. Pinstripe is so dominant that when you breed a pinstripe to anything, 80-90% of your babies have pinstripe in them, and it's just really hard to get it out of a cool project once you got it in there. So.
No, I feel that. That's one of the things I forget who I was talking to, but I was talking to someone and I was like, every time I've bred with pinstripe in it, it seems to overwhelm the clutch. Like you were saying. I don't know. Usually like out of a 10-8 clutch, I might have 1 or 2 that doesn't have it. And it's just like I don't understand this. But
yeah, my original Jag had pinstripe in it, and man, that was a pain in the ass, man. 3/4 of my clutches had pinstripe, and it's near impossible to sell a pinstripe with Jag in it because it's just the combinations fight each other. So
you got a bunch of just whacked out snakes just sitting there.
For the first year or two working with Jag, yeah, man, I had like 15 or 20 tubs with snakes that I'm like, the project needs to build some steam. People need to come at me to where I'm like, well, all I have is pinstripe, and they'll buy it at that point. But in the beginning, it was a bit harder of a sell.
And then On the reverse side of that, what's one of those morphs that you're super happy that you jumped into when you did?
Well, Jag would be the number one. I mean, I went from, I know people don't like to talk about money. I do, because the new people coming into it, that's what attracted me to the money side of it. Was I watched people I know do it. I watched them go from living in poverty to buying houses and stuff like that. And then they did it through ball pythons and then this hobby. So the money part of it's kind of important. So I went from, like, 7,500 to 15 grand to 20 grand. I worked my way up over the seasons, and I thought 20 grand was amazing, man. Like, holy shit, I made it to 20 grand. I never thought I'd do that, with all the negative talk around me coming into this thing. And in 2022, I made almost 150 G's. Last year, 100, 2022, around 100. And that's just doing ball pythons. And most of that came from that Jag project. So that was a real cool boost to my business and to the whole thing, because I was able to take some of those profits, reinvest in new projects, new genes. I bought a trailer, I bought a car. I just upped my game a little bit with those profits. And the Redhead's been fairly good to me as well. But Jag has definitely been my number one project since I got into ball python.
Nice. Okay. And then we kind of talked about it a little bit, but you just bought that trailer. You worked really hard. Like, I remember watching, what was it, like almost a month-long episode of you setting up, like going through how you wanted your travel trailer to be for the shows. And I think it turned out beautifully. I think your setup for the shows is freaking gorgeous. I don't know, we didn't get a actual picture of the inside
That's
of it.
right. Sean Bradley says I post every second thought, and he's probably right. So when that trail, I'm just trying to share the excitement. When I did the Rat Shack, it was the same thing. Every day, 2-3 times a day. If I'm digging a ditch to run hot water out to my shop 4 or 5 feet underground, I'm doing posts about it and showing people and including people in it. And that's how I built my name. That's how people know who I am, is by watching me do these projects along the way. And so that trailer. So when times are good, right? We're going out for $200 steak dinners, and I'm spending $1,500 on miscellaneous crap at a show and building memories. But it's not always like that. I've been in it for 10 or 11 years. I've seen friends unable to pay for their table. It's just times are tough. Snakes aren't selling, whatever the case may be. So a U-Haul or a rental vehicle to get all my gear from here to Toronto is $300-400 every time I do it. Your hotel's $200. Your steak dinner's $200. So I went out and bought this travel trailer, whatever it is, enclosed trailer for 10 grand. I put 5 grand into it. It's got solar panel, batteries, diesel heat, all that. So my snakes are in 75-degree Fahrenheit heat on the way to the expo, on the way back, and in storage anytime they're in the trailer. And then I also have electricity in the trailer, even when I'm on the road. And my cases, my next level cases, are up at 90 degrees. So they've got their hotspot and everything. So I can feed right up to the day before a show, pack everything up into that trailer, go unload it, screw the hotel. I'm going outside to sleep in my trailer. It all converts into a sleeper. It's got a toilet, bathroom in there, and a double bed, and a TV, and everything you can ask for. So
you're enjoying the gypsy lifestyle.
I am, man.
Heck yeah.
And it's pretty cool. I wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock, open the door, yawn, and the expo venue is 30-40 feet from my door, and all my friends are walking by as they're pulling in, and it's a cool place to wake up in the morning. So
okay. What's one of the things that you would say is probably the most memorable about the shows up in Canada? Because obviously there's a slight difference in what you see versus like the Tinleys or Arlingtons or stuff here in the States versus the way Canada has to do it. What's some of the stuff up there that you would attribute to really just pushing what those shows have become up there?
So yeah, the Canada shows are definitely different than the States, the American shows. I haven't been down to them, but I watched them on YouTube for years when I was into this thing. And your shows down there are much bigger. So it's an ebb and flow thing. I mean, in 2017, we had every influencer from the US and all over the world coming up for our CRBE. It was a huge deal. It's more vendors than you could even count, and it was really big. And then we got 2-3 years where we went downhill. And I hate to say thank God for COVID, but COVID really pulled us out of all that. unfortunately, we couldn't do expos during that time. But we came back pretty strong afterwards, late 2021, early 2022. I can't remember when we started doing expos again. But a lot of people left over since I got in since 2017 to now. I think 3/4 of the hobby up here just couldn't hack it, man, and they left. And the same people who have been through 2 or 3 droughts are they're the top dogs up here. Every time you stick through one of these things, you come out a little bit bigger on the other side. So Christian Jorgensen from Morphendorphins, Manny Singh from Operation Python, Mike Bennett, Will Morrows. There's a whole bunch of just top dogs up here that have stuck through all these downfalls, and like I say, they've come out bigger. So I think there's probably maybe 10 what I would consider bigger, legit, I'm doing this for a living type breeders up here that go to these expos. Everybody else, they've got their job, they're relying on their job, and it's a side thing. They're hoping someday they can do it. And more power to them. I hope that we can fill it back up with 30 or 40 people who are doing it for a living and full time. So,
Okay, I'm gonna give you props. I know Foster isn't the easiest person to work with. I don't know how you deal with them all for a whole weekend. I'm gonna talk crap now because he's not in the chat. I know I'm gonna hear back for this, but I freaking love Foster. But I'm sure. There's plenty of good stories. Everything that I saw leading up to this, you guys have kind of been working not hand in hand, but like working together at the CBREs for a while now, right?
So Foster came to me with to the last one in 2022, and yeah, I think 2022 was my first time vending my own thing. So I was always helping Chris Towers Reptiles for the past 5-6 years before that. And me and Foster are really good friends. And if he didn't move away halfway across the damn country, we would be vending every expo together. You know it, man. He's a good dude. And he came into this thing. I was probably 3-4 years in, and I was just geeking out. And he'd be on the sidelines chirping, making fun of the names and stuff. Banana split, milkshake, blah blah blah. This is fuck, dude. This is serious to us, you know. But inside, he was memorizing it all, and he was actually keeping tabs. And one day, he just jumped in with the lingo, and he knew exactly what the hell he was talking about. And I could tell from day one, since he started taking it seriously, that guy could be anything about pythons. And if anybody's gonna make it, it's gonna be Foster.
Foster's good.
Props to Foster.
So how many projects would you say at this time that you're working?
I hear that question sometimes, and I always wonder how I'd answer it because I'm so all over the place, man. Like you could say redhead, but redhead really jumps off in 6 directions with me. So I'll name some of the cooler genes that I'm working with and some of the stuff I recently bought. I'm right into the redhead, right into the jag. Saffron's a new gene, and Chris Towers is spearheading that, and he proved a super saffron a year or 2 ago, and it's growing up now, and it looks amazing, man. So I just bought into that. I was the very first person to buy into that project, other than the person who originated it, Chris. So that's going to be going into a whole bunch of stuff. Right now I'm putting in the Pied, Clown, DG, all the recessives I can get it into. Nice. I just bought a OD, Enchi, Yellow Belly, Leopard, Stranger, Posset Pied, and that's to go in my Tri-Stripe project. So I bought a gene called Electric a few years ago, and it was just cool as hell. And nobody was working with it, and I thought it was really neat. It made animals glow. And while I started making electrics, the originator also, Chris Towers, put 2 electrics together and produced a tri-stripe. So he realized that his electrics were harboring the tri-stripe gene. So I right away looked at mine like, okay, that one looks at tri-stripe, that looks at tri-stripe. So I held back 10 or so females. This was a few years back, and it took me probably 4 years of breeding different combinations of them to finally hit a tri-stripe and realize that I did have it in my collection. So it's taken me 2-3 years since then to produce a handful of tri-stripes. But they're all basic stuff. Lesser tri-stripe, Mojave tri-stripe. I got 3 or 4 just normal tri-stripes. So now I'm looking for some really cool mixed codoms to put in it. So that's where that Stranger combo came in, and I'll be looking for other stuff too. I think tri-stripes way underrated. It didn't get its due when it came out. It was too overpriced and it wasn't flashy enough. But now that we've seen some cool stuff put into it, Phil Robinson's done some cool stuff with it, and And now I know that the gene's it's got a bright future for sure. So I'm trying to push some cool codoms into it at this point.
Okay. I think there's a certain way that everyone, and not when I say certain, I don't mean like you have to do it exactly this way, but there's a certain way that everyone kind of sets up their projects to ensure that they're going to be successful in those projects. So when you're looking to set up your next ball python breeding project, what's kind of like the ratio or the way you like to configure one of your projects?
So I'm all over the place. I got a basic plan of where I want to go with stuff. So when I got the redhead, it's a head gene, and I geek out on that kind of stuff. A vanilla and a super vanilla wipes out the head on an animal. A black head, super black head, gives you a completely black head. The redhead it's a redhead, and those three heads are going to fight each other when you try to put them on a snake. And I want to see what it looks like. The patterns would be cool too, but I'm really interested in seeing what the head looks like. So redhead, blackhead, vanilla is something I want to do, but that's just kind of a loose thing. So for now, I'll make my redhead ultra males, I'll make my redhead pieds, and they're all 50% het clown, by the way. So I'll be hitting a few redhead ultra clowns and redhead ultra pieds and pied clowns and stuff like that. And I trailed off from where I was there. I forgot what I was talking about.
I was saying, when you're setting up your project, how do you choose to work your projects when you're setting them up?
So all those projects that I've started now, they're just a loose base idea for something that's going to happen 5 to 7 years from now. Almost all my projects start off that way. Some neat stuff will come out in the meantime, but it's all going to be later on down the road. So down the road, my loose plan is those three head genes need to get worked into the redhead project, and I'll pick which projects I interweave it into down the road. But it's usually a loose base thing. I don't plan on the exact animal I'm aiming for or anything like that. I'm aiming for a puzzle piece that I'm going to put to another puzzle piece, and maybe I'll think it one step past that, but I don't go much past that. It's the final thing is always 5 to 7 years from now.
Right.
You never feel good enough, right? You never feel like what I made this year is good enough. You don't want to see this year. Next year is going to be the shit. And now I'm looking, no, 5 years from now, that's going to be the shit. So that's how I look at my project. I'm just trying to make puzzle pieces. Hopefully they look cool so that I can have something cool to look at over the next few years. And then I'll make something really cool with them down the road.
Okay.
So
let's kind of jump into where your whole thoughts for this breeding went. We went on multiple kind of areas with that, but you said your dad started when he was doing the schools. He grew up a ball python. That's what kind of inspired you to do ball pythons, and then he was doing rodents as well. So when did you kind of decide, okay, this is what I want to do, and decide that this is what you're gonna focus the majority of your time on?
2013, I started catching the bug pretty hard. So 2011, I got a ball python again. I had a bunch of corns and all types of stuff, and I got a ball python for my son and one for me. By 2013, I was thoroughly hooked. 2015, I was starting to vend expos with Chris Towers, and he was showing me the ropes and introducing me to people and whatnot. And he had kind of a heart-to-heart to me back then. The hobby was on its way down, and he was a little nervous. He's like, man, I like to capitalize on new genes, import them into Canada, make some bank on them, and then hold back a few females and work them in my project. And I don't see the next big thing. It's not out there right now. And then bamboo came in and cypress came in, and they were kind of feuding for what was going to be number one. And he didn't know which one to go with, so he picked both. So I'm thinking cypress is too normally looking back then. That bamboo is something new. That's going to be cool. And a lot of people thought that. So I watched him make a lot of money off bamboo in a year, 80,000 or so in a few months. I don't want to get into his personal profits and whatnot, but within a year or two after purchasing bamboo, he bought a house. And I thought that was cool as shit. I watched him do it. I watched him make all these moves. And then when bamboo started to go downhill because it was too much like lesser, it was hard to change the gene or whatever, cypress started to work its way up. So he had a double whammy. All of a sudden, cypress is becoming popular, and he starts making bank off cypress. And so just watching a really good friend of mine do this, like before that, I was sitting around in a group of 4 or 5 guys saying the same thing. I just want to be able to pay for my collection. I just want to have cool snakes and have it not come out of pocket. And then watching him do that, it just flipped the script on me, man. It wasn't about that anymore. It was about, screw this. I don't want to work for anybody else ever again. I want to do this for a living. This shit looks so exciting. We were out one day kayaking, fishing, me and Chris, and he's on the phone, and I'm yelling over, I got a fish. And, I'm on the phone. He's on his kayak. What are you doing on the phone? I paddle over. Like, dude, I just made $8,000. He made an $8,000 sale sitting on the kayak fishing, and it was just so cool, man. That's what I want to do for a living. So following him around for a couple of years showed me you could do it, and that's why I'm always telling other people you can do it and trying to talk about the money, because you can do it. So,
what were you doing before you decided to like just dive in on this full-fledged?
So I've had various occupations. I framed houses for years. I mentioned on another podcast, I grew copious amounts of marijuana for probably 20 years. And I just got tired of that life. They're about to legalize marijuana. I wanted no part of that. So I started up a roofing company, and then I started up a second roofing company, and I was doing really good at that. Really proud of my roofing companies. I had them for 8 years, but I shot myself through the foot. That wasn't fun. Shoulder surgery, trying to fix a bum shoulder, and the shoulder surgery got botched, and it just went downhill. 7 years I tried to get my shoulder repaired, and they couldn't do it. So I ended up having to fold both those companies, and I went into a bit of a depression, probably 7 years. Just what the hell am I going to do, man? Construction is my life. I know everything about construction, and I'm wounded and I can't work no more. And so I immersed myself in nature. I started going out in the forest and stuff like that every day. I'd spend 8 hours in the forest. I'd go out in the morning, take a nap up against a tree, wake up around dinner time. Oh shit, it's getting dark. I gotta go home. And that's just what I did to cure my depression for a few years. And then I started getting into animals and breeding frogs and stuff like that, and corn snakes, and I slowly came out of it. And it just gave me something to do with my time. I enjoyed breeding the rodents for the snakes, and I enjoyed the snakes. And because the hobby was kind of on a downturn, in 2015 and whatnot, 2017, I wasn't really sure that I could for sure make it in ball pythons. I'd seen people do it, but the rats seemed like a good secondary income. So when the ball pythons are waning, at least I have my rat sales. So I put a lot of myself into my rodents for the first 5-6 years. That's why you were saying I didn't really know that the rat thing and the snake guy were the same thing. For the first 5 years, it was all about the rats. I spent 18 hours a day in that rat shack, getting a bond going with every single rodent in my collection, and sharing every last bit of it on Facebook and whatnot. And then I slowly started, as people realize I'm a professional at what I do, I slowly started switching my content over to the snakes. And as the snakes became cooler too, I didn't want to show the snakes that weren't as cool in the beginning. So
yeah, no, I totally, I love it, man. Like I've one of the things that I've enjoyed the most is kind of watching little tips and tricks pop out, but like actually watching how you were saying earlier, like each one of your rats, even though a lot of people would just consider them feeders, they're like a pet for you. Like I've watched you put like crawlers and pups into your beard and have like adults just sitting on your shoulders while you were working. And I find it fascinating. How much time do you think you still to this day put into each animal when you're taking care of your rats? Because you have a fairly decent collection of rats. Like you can see it in the picture here.
Thanks, man. Not as much as I used to. That's by design. It starts to wane on you, man, when your best friends are rats and they die every 2 years. So
yeah.
So I used to work when I was building this business. I had a mouse building half this size, an ASF building half this size, and then the rat building. And then I was building the snake thing at the same time. And I was taking 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for 2-3 years straight. It was starting to have an effect on my health and whatnot. But even after an 18-hour day, what I would do at 2, 3, 4 in the morning is I'd turn my Facebook Live on. I'd walk around the room. I'd play with my rats. I'd sit in the corner and hang out with a rat for an extra 2 hours. So now I'm at 20 hours, and I'm looking at 4 hours sleep if I'm lucky. But if I didn't unwind with my rodents at the end of the day, then all this work was for nothing. So it's in the beginning, I did have a bond with every male rat in my room. It starts with the males. They calm the females down. Next thing you know, the females become your friends too. But it's the males I'm looking to bond with. You bond with your males. They breed better. They control the female harem better. They're a better rodent for it. So.
Okay. Oh, I feel it. So I've never really had major issues with mine, but I remember there was one. So she got attacked when she was a baby, and the male that was in the colony that she came from took half of her tail. So we called her
Oh,
Nubs.
sure.
And we grew her up, and she's the only rat that's like legitimately went after me and bit me. And everyone's like, "Oh, you know what happens when they bite you? You just have to." And I was like, "No," because she's had a hard life, so I'm gonna give her a pass this time. And I worked her and worked her, and she hit the point where she had to get cold, unfortunately. And it was while we were at Arlington, and I told my buddies that helped me out with rats. I was like, "You got to do it while I'm gone. Like, I can't be there when you do that, because if
Yeah.
I know it's happening, I'm not going to do well." But
It's almost, it's like getting a dog put down. You don't have as much time invested in them, but it sucks, man. And that column shit, I hate that, man. Like every little problem, a zipper gets chewed, a rat got out, he chewed his bin, whatever. It's my fault. The bin wasn't tight enough. I should have made that rack different. So I'm gonna go just smoke out this life, this entity, because I fucked up. Like I get so tired of hearing that. There's hardly any reason to call a rat. If a rat bites you repeatedly every time you open a bin with viciousness and it really does damage to you, call the thing. I don't think I've ever had a rat act like that. You know, it's just a behavioral problem, probably because of me and the way I built my racks or the way I run my operation. So, and you're right, you can make friends with that rat and break that behavior fairly easy if you just put a few minutes into your rodents. So
that's a valid question, Cold Blood. So they wrote, I don't know if you could see it since you're on the phone.
yeah,
Can you see it? Okay.
I always hear about developing allergies, sensitivities to rodents when working in large numbers. I don't have that issue at all. My breathing is shit these days, and I will caution against so diatomaceous earth. I got a bug outbreak probably a decade ago, and it was rat mites or something like that. And diatomaceous earth was the way I chose to handle it. It's a non-toxic, non-chemical way of doing it. It's a sea crustation that looks like baby powder. But at a microscopic level, it looks like shards of torn glass and stuff like that. So to us, it feels like baby powder. You throw it on a rat or in a rat bin, and any tiny little microscopic bug that goes through it, their exoskeleton gets all cut up and they dry out real quick. The only downfall with that stuff is if you use it every day, all the time, it can cause cancer and it can tear up your lungs real good. So I used it. I used it at first to get rid of the bugs, and then as a preventative measure for another probably 3 years straight. And my lungs took a beating from it. It's just like I said, that shard glass is what it looks like at a microscopic level. So I stopped using it, and now once in a while I'll use it to clean up a rat. You get male rats, and they scratch a lot on the sides of their face. They got buck grease secreting that attracts the females and whatnot, and they'll scratch a lot, and sometimes they'll scratch their face up. You want to help them out and get rid of that, you rub diatomaceous earth in their face. It soothes it. 2-3 days later, it's gone, and it's started healing already. So it is really good stuff to use, but you don't want to use it every day, all the time for years like I did.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. So do you run the rats solely by yourself? Like everything you do is all by yourself?
Yeah, I like to help my son out. He works just up the road at Chrysler detailing cars, works full time up there. So I let him feed and water just to give him an extra $400 or $500 a month or whatever. But other than that, yeah, I'm the sole cleaner out there. And for the first 4 or 5 years, I cleaned twice a week, every week. That was part of the whole 80 hours a week that I was working. I was double cleaning, and man, that makes for a really awesome clean operation. And your rats really know you because you're changing it every 3 days. But it's also a lot of time, and you only live for so long. And I'm not working 80 hours a week forever. So I did eventually go down to once a week for my rodents. But
And is there a specific setup that you use on your rodents, like whether it be like colony size or well, I'm saying colony size. I'm not sure exactly how you breed yours, but the way you set up or like the bedding that you choose for that.
yeah, so I changed things a lot over the years. I didn't have one of the things I really could have used was YouTube videos. So Ralph Davis had an 8-part rat barn video series, and it got yanked off of YouTube years ago, and I couldn't go back to it for reference, unfortunately. But it was a really good video on how to breed rats. Other than that, I couldn't find anything. Just people breeding with crappy racks in their basement that I was not looking to emulate their operations by any means. So I built all my own racks, just thinking I could do it. I would zoom in on pictures of other people's racks and stuff like that. My first racks were side to side, long racks with hoses going side to side. That's crap. You don't want one hose controlling the entire rack. You get to chew out, and it affects the entire rack. So I had to change all my hosing. And then I learned that the hosing I was using would collect calcium in it because it was see-through maple syrup lines. So it was a little cheaper than going with the black lines. So I learned that just go with the black lines. You're going to waste money with the maple syrup ones anyway. So I built my racks wrong. I used the wrong hosing. I ordered sippers, and they ended up being mouse sippers, and they chew through those a lot quicker. So I made about every mistake you can. I redesigned. I completely took all my racks, burnt them in a bonfire, built new ones 3 separate times in this business, because the rats getting out every day of the week is not cool. So you want to build a rack that your rats can't escape from. And eventually I finally got that down packed, and it's not as easy as it sounds. It's a lot of chew points and stuff like that they can get at that you gotta make sure you take into effect when you're building them. So
100%. What was that feeling like when you realized like all these racks that you built just weren't gonna cut it, and you just bonfired them?
Horrible. Yeah. There've been a few really, really shitty downfalls. I've had multiple outbreaks too with the rodents where I had to kill all my own. 70% of them died in 24 hours. I had to kill the rest. And in doing so, I also had to take out the racks and take them apart, screw by screw, scrub them down, put them back together. And then there were times where I had to throw the racks out and burn them because they were the wrong design and whatnot. But at the end of it, when I would build my second or third rack and this one's good, it's been a week, nothing's chewing out. It's a good feeling, man. Improving in life. It always sucks while you're doing the work, but when you're looking back at it a few weeks later and it actually worked and it's for the better, then it's like, shit, I should have done that to begin with.
For sure. What do you set up as? Do you set up for maternity, or do you set up strictly in colony?
So I used to pull my females. So I did the black mortar tubs, those big black mortar tubs, and I hate those. I had a building full of those, and they're so easy to chew on them because of the round lips on them, and they chew out all the time. And I would pull the females out, and I'd put them in their own drawers or whatever. And in the beginning, maybe 4 or 5 years in or something, I tried keeping the litters in with the harem or whatever you want to call it, and not pulling the females, and they would get trampled and killed, and I would lose a good 50% of my babies because it just wasn't working out. So I went back to pulling the females, and I did that for a few more years. And it got to a point where I knew my colony. Every last rat in this building knows me. I got a bond with all of them. I'm a rat whisperer. Let's try this shit again. So I tried it again, and there's no trampling. You can have pups, weans, pinkies all in the same tub. They can be overcrowded, whatever the case. They don't turn on each other. They don't trample each other. It's all copacetic nowadays. So that right there allows you to double your production. So I switched the mortar tubs to cat litter tubs. They've got flat tops on them instead of the rounded tops. Yeah, so instead of doing 1 male and 6 females, now I'm doing 1 male and 3 females and getting the exact same amount out of them. So I was able to get way more tubs in the room doing it that way. I almost doubled my production. So that's what I do now. Wood chips, I'm using a high-end wood chip, but it's only because all the other brands of wood chips went up during the pandemic, $7, $8 extra per bag, and now they're up at what the high-end ones were anyways. So I'm just buying this high-end horse stall, 10 times kiln dried wood chip, Purina rat chow. It's not the best, but it definitely does the trick. You don't see any badness from it anyways. So.
Okay. What's have you looked at the content I mean, all of them are essentially cornmeal with additives, but
yeah, it's very similar to the ones you have down there, the hard what is it, Harlan or whatever. Yeah, 18% protein. I think some of them are as high as 21. But and there are 3 different grades of the Purina rat chow, and I'm not picking the highest or lowest grade. I'm picking whatever's got the best quality control right now, which we have a problem with up here in Canada. Sometimes you'll get a bag and it's half dust, and you're paying good money for a skid of food and it's half dust. It goes right through the hopper and gets peed on and doesn't get eaten. and thousands of dollars goes down the drain. So we had that happen for several months. We kept returning skids of the stuff. And then we finally switched to another brand and then another brand. And we finally landed on one where they seem to be able to get the quality control down. But
And do you go strictly just the I guess it would be called a pellet.
pellets?
I'm not sure what, yeah. Do you go strictly the pellet, or do you do supplementation with the rodents, or?
No, nowadays the pellets. When my operation was smaller, I used to chop up carrots and stuff like that for them, seeds, whatever. But no, not anymore. Just the rodent food does just fine. If you do call your rat by the time it gets to a year old, then the food's just great for him. So
Okay. I know there's a lot of people that say a lot of things with it. So you've been very effective in the way that you've done it, and you've obviously done your science. Like, you change foods, you change the way you do things. You have a very close relationship with your rats. So I find that a lot of people worry about it, or like, I think they get rats from people that go with a higher protein sometimes, and they'll initially freak out when you put them on that regular pellet. But I think it all changes with time too. Like, they
yeah,
adjust.
and
They're smart animals.
the proof's always in the product too. I mean, I'll put my rat up against anybody else's rat. I produce really good hardy rats. People ask me sometimes, what do your smalls weigh and stuff like that? I don't go by weight. I go by feel. I haven't gone my weight in a decade. I pick up a rat and I feel it. And if it feels like a hardy small, it's a hardy small. You can tell me you sell 100-gram rats, but that rat might not be fed for 2-3 days. It might be fed shitty food. It might be all types of things. It might be a long, skinny rat or a short, fat rat, so body structure, the right amount of room for them to jump around in their tubs and wrestle and all that stuff. And you'll see it in the final product. When you deliver a rat, it shouldn't smell like piss or shit. It should look like a beefy rat that gets its exercise and has a good amount of weight on it. And that's the product I produce. If it was anything less than that, then I would look at the food and I would dissect that a little more. But for me, the product is top notch. So I'm sticking with what I'm doing.
Was there ever a moment when you were like switching through where you're like, oh, this is making the rodents like coat more oily, or anything that like brought concern?
Not so much for anything I would do, but with the quality control issues, yeah. So they add more molasses and less of a different ingredient during the winter to make it bind more, and it molds easier in the wintertime. So they have to take another ingredient out, and they just keep screwing it up. And sometimes you'll get a batch that their shit's a little bit more runny than usual or whatever. And every you pick up, you get shit on your hand or whatever. That'll be a result of the quality control just not being done properly on the food. There wasn't enough binder in the food or whatever the case may be, but that's a rare thing. And other than that, no, I've had pretty healthy, good rats since I started this thing, thankfully. Other than the couple outbreaks I've had and the bug problem I had a decade ago.
Okay, there's kind of a talk that we've had, and there are papers that show, and I've had to go back and reread the papers, but how long you could essentially run the same group of rat bloodlines. What's your thoughts on how long you should run a specific bloodline before bringing in new bloodlines?
So I looked a lot into that. I did a lot of research when I got into it, snakes and ball pythons. I just spent my first year or two geeking out trying to figure all this shit out. And supposedly you can breed a rodent direct relative bred like 10 times in a row before you see any ear dots or anything like that. So that's like taking a baby, bringing it back to his mother, taking the baby from that, bringing it back, taking it over and over and over. It'll take you over a year or two to do that. But that's not going to happen because your room is so wide, at least not in mine. I got 1,200 rats, and the baby goes into a bin with 200 more rats. By the time it gets into the breeding circulation, it's been through 100 bins. It's not going back in with a direct relative anymore. It's going back in with a relative 300 times removed or not a relative at all. So with the bigger collections, there's really not a problem. You just keep going until you either get an outbreak or you retire, as far as I see. With a smaller collection, 20, 30, 40, 50 rats, it'll become a problem. Eventually, after 4 or 5 years, you'll start missing ears on half your rats, or missing the tails, and stuff like that. Crook neck becomes way more apparent. Is when their neck crook and they start running around in circles and shit. And so the bigger your collection, you don't really got to worry about it. The smaller you are, I think every 3 to 5 years, you really need to replace everything. Don't ever breed new stuff into your colony. That's how you get an outbreak. That's how I caused my own outbreak. So always just start fresh, get rid of everything and start new.
So have you ever had like something crazy pop up? So one of the things that I found recently, and I know it's a rare occurrence, but I actually had a hermaphrodite. I had a female. Well, so it was a female, but she had miniature testicles. It was the
Okay.
weirdest thing I've ever seen in a rat.
No, you gotta send that into Ripley's, believe it or not.
Well, that was one of the ones. So I help out a couple of the pet stores here, and I was like, I'm not going to take the chance with that one. So that one went to a pet store cold as a frozen thawed. But if it happens again, I'm going to have to take pictures of it. I don't know how it popped up, but it's the weirdest thing that I've ever seen.
I've had Manxes pop up, which is it's a tailless, but it ends up being genetic. And Merles, I produced probably 1 million rats at this point, or close to it. And I've produced maybe 3 or 4 what I consider real Merles, like a real cool looking Merle rat. And that's about it for cool stuff popping up. You get different colors once in a while. Like you'll be running albino rats for a year, and all of a sudden you'll pop out a Dumbo gray and brown rat. And then what the hell, where'd that come from? I don't even understand it, but it's happened to me several times over the years. New rats pop up out of my collection that I never produced anything like that before. I don't understand where it's coming from, but.
Nice. What do you think your production is to this point? Like, is it enough that you can push across Canada? Like with people jumping into the rodent game more and more every day, like really looking at trying to become more of a distribution level. Where do you think you stand in all that right now, or where do you want to take it?
I'm happy where I am. I want to back it off, if anything. So,
yeah.
So that little operation, the pictures there or whatever, that I pushed probably 50 grand a year worth of pet store sales through there, and maybe 40 or 50 grand a year in wholesale. And I have a handful of larger ball python breeders that I supply as well as my own collection eats up 700 or 800 rats a month or whatever. And that's good enough for me, man. I used to have probably 20 customers, and I would go do meets. I'd meet them at a coffee shop on Saturdays, and there'd always be the one person that's late, or I can't get off work. Can you drop it off my work? And it's just a pain in the ass. If you want to feed your snakes, you got to be here every week at the same time. And so every time somebody would drop off, I would try to replace them with somebody bigger, so I would have less customers and still sell them the same amount of rats. And I've literally got it down to about 4 customers now that I sell more rats to these 4 customers than I used to sell to 20 different people. So that's my deal. Is I try and what's that?
The hassle's gone now because you know they're going to show up for their rats.
100%. Yeah. Now it's big deals, $4,000 or $5,000 sales and stuff like that. And I have no interest in delivering. I got no interest in going countrywide. There's a rat shortage. I don't know about down there, but it's been since I got in up here, there's been a rat shortage. I got in because there was a rat shortage, and it's gotten nothing but worse. A lot of people have folded. A lot of the bigger companies have gotten outbreaks and whatnot, and they've gone under. And there are people that they shouldn't be buying 40, 50 animals from a pet store, but that's all they can do because us breeders are far and few in between. And so I stick with my few customers that are super loyal to me. They treat me really good, and I treat them really good. And I'm not looking to expand. If anything, my ball pythons are going to expand. Eventually, I'll be eating more and more of those rodents myself, and we'll see where that takes me.
Right. What's you said you feed around 700 right now. What's your ball python collection at?
So 100 females, 25 or 30 males, and you've always got between 50 and 200 for sale stuff, right? So So my for sale stuff eats every 5 days. I feed the crap out of it. At 6 months, it's looking like it's a year old, even when it's for sale, because I treat it like it's mine, and people appreciate that. And so yeah, probably about 800 rodents a month, I would think, and that's between the adults and all the hatchlings and the males and stuff like that.
Okay. That's a hefty job, sir. How many babies would you say out of that 100 females, how many are actually being bred every year?
So I think probably 60 or 70 of them are breedable size, and the rest are anywhere between 6 months and a year and a half or something like that. They're my grow ups. They take up another rack. So I'm breeding 2/3 of those females. And last year I should have got 50 clutches. I had an overheated rack, which took out almost 20 clutches. So I ended up with 33 clutches last year. Excuse me. And that gave me about 150 hatchlings or something like that. I'm hoping to get up to around 100 clutches a year. I think that's probably a sweet spot for me.
And is it ever going to be more than just you, or do you want to just keep it you and your son?
Just me. Maybe a single employee or something like that. So I want to go to the WCRE. It's on the other side of Canada, and I want to go for a week or two, take a truck in the trailer, and enjoy some camping on the way. And when you're a farmer, and I'm by all means a farmer, you can't leave. Your rats need to be checked on every day of the week. And anybody you have come here, they've got their own job, so they can't be working the full 50 hours a week for you or whatever. So it's going to be a pain in the ass. I'm going to have to rely on 2 or 3 people to one water, one feed, one look. I'll teach you how to find leaking sippers and escapees, and take care of that problem for me when I'm gone, because they can cause real havoc. So I like being the sole proprietor and the sole worker, because it's all done my way. But it would be nice to have somebody just so I can go away once in a while.
I feel that. That's one of the hardest things to do, I think, especially in this industry, because most people have a standard that they require all their animals to be at, and it's hard to find someone else that'll uphold the same standard that you want for your animals, because it's not theirs, right? But I don't know, like it's one of the things that I think about a lot, especially with having friends and essentially partners that kind of help me with my stuff. Is like, well, I know from my time in the military and my back that I can only handle so much. So I need someone to kind of help me. Right. And that was the hardest thing for me, was letting go of control. And we still fight to it to this day. I'm just like, do it this way. But we're doing workarounds. When you had your son start helping out a little bit, did you ever run into something like that, or how did you approach him kind of feeding and watering animals?
I am OCD, like anal OCD, so I probably treated him like hell. The hoppers, I want the hoppers filled like that. I don't want pieces on the side. I want it to look pristine, clean, like I'm going to come along and take a picture and put it in a magazine in a few minutes, so don't fuck that shit up. I want all my water up to within 1 inch of the top exactly, so I know that the entire room is going to empty down at the same time, and I'm going to know when to fill it. Just little things, to where the little perfectionist things I do, I kind of expect that in anybody that works for me. But you're not going to get it. You're never going to get it. Like, so I'm what's kind of hard on in the beginning. Nowadays he can't screw it up. It's a pretty easy job he's doing. But he used to help me in a bigger capacity with cleaning and whatnot. It would be from the amount of wood chips to just every little thing I'd be nitpicking on, because this is the way I do it, and this is the way it's got to be. So I don't have any much help these days other than feed. But I've got an emergency friend. So Peter Williams from Peter Williams Reptiles. He ran the snake business before I ran mine, and I used to, dude, that's so awesome, I want to do that someday. And I was running a rat business, and he, dude, that's so awesome, I want to do that. And we kind of schooled each other back and forth, and now we're comparable. We run equal size snake and rodent businesses, and he's kind of my emergency guy. So if I'm ever in the hospital, I get COVID that I can't beat on my own or whatever, I never ask anybody for help. But if I damn well really need it, he's going to come take care of my rats for me. If I trip and die tomorrow, he's going to come get my collection, sell it all for the best he can get, and then give the money to my son minus my commission or whatever. So I think it's important to have somebody like that to where you can rely on them. But as far as, hey, Pete, I'm behind, man. Can you come help me? You won't catch me saying that. I'll work 100 hours in a week before I ask for help. It's only in dire emergency situations.
Respect that, man. That's the way more of us should be. I'll admit, I can't do it. Like I'll push myself to where I can, but with 3 little kids that hang on me all day, trying to do snakes, trying to do rats, my body only has so much left. But I'll push it. I'll push it as far as it'll let me go. There's been a couple times where we were working rats and they just see me fall on the floor and they're like, "You good?" I was like, "Yeah, my back just gave. Just give me a second. Make sure the rats don't get out." What's one of the things that you would give as far as advice for people that are just getting into the rat game, or they really want to make sure that they're successful in just bringing up their colonies or however they decide to do it?
Research. When I got in, like I said, there wasn't much to find online, but there is now. It's been 10 years since there's a lot more people putting out quality information on rodent breeding and whatnot. And don't just bug the hell out of someone you consider a mentor until you've done a little bit of research. I mean, I literally almost had a breakdown a few years ago. In my first 5 years when I was doing the rat thing, I was trying to help everybody and anybody I could. And a lot of them weren't taking it seriously. They asked you a stupid question. They wouldn't follow through with what you told them. They'd come back and complain it didn't work. And it was just, they were bound to fail. You could see it. So now I'm a lot more picky with who I'll help out and whatnot. So just do a lot of your own research. Once you've got all the terminology down and you know how to build your rack and all that, if you have a simple question like, where did you get your zipper? I'm having a hard time finding them. Then people are more than happy to help. Questions I would get were, what size screw do you use? What size of screen is that? How did you do that? Where'd you get your zipper? How much money do you make? What the fuck? Like, I'm supposed to completely school you, man? You go to school to learn a business course. If you want to learn everything there is about rodents, spend the next 10 years learning it. But so just do a little research and then find somebody you trust or you like their operation and ask them simple questions that they can actually help you with. If it's a long drawn out thing about how confused you are, it's kind of hard for us to help you because it's a big learning curve and there's so much to learn from the outbreaks to the proper sippers to the proper containment to the heating to exhaust. A lot of people don't exhaust their rodent buildings in the winter because of cost. I exhaust $600-700 worth of heat out my window every single month during the winter months. It's a cost of doing business because your rodents suffer otherwise. You suffer otherwise. You're breathing in that pneumonia while you're out there, that ammonia while you're out there cleaning and whatnot. So put the proper money into a good setup. Research what you're going to do before you do it, so you don't waste your time and money. And find a mentor. Just make sure you've done a lot of your own research. Research.
Okay, I like that. And then on the flip side of it, I'm going to assume you're probably going to say research, but for those that want to take ball pythons to the next step or begin a whole ball python breeding process, what's your advice for those that are just now coming into it?
That's a learning thing too. So the rats, anybody can do the rats. It's just whether you have it in you to do it or not, whether you're a hard worker, whether you follow through with stuff or not. Everybody's an individual. But bare bones, anybody with 2 arms, 2 legs, and you can see what you're doing, you should be able to breed rats. It's just going to be a learning curve. Not everybody can do the ball pythons. So I think an artistic flair, if you're going to be trying to make any kind of money off it, is important, and not everybody has it. I mean, there are people who've been in this 10 years longer than me, and they're breeding 20-year-old inadequate genes that aren't even fetching $50 anymore, and you can't sell them. And I'm wondering, it's been 20 years. What are you doing? So an artistic flair, you got to make a snake that looks cool to begin with, and then you got to be able to sell it, and you got to be able to sell yourself. Nobody wants to buy from somebody they don't like, and they want to know that you're going to be around in the future to help them. So it's a slow building process. You got to build yourself up in the community, and you'll make it or break it. Depends on whether you are a good artist or not. And I hate to say it that bluntly, but if you're not artistic, then you might not thrive in this thing. You might make cool pets. You might really enjoy the hobby for what it is. It's a really cool hobby. But as for financial gains, if you're looking to make a living, you should be able to make some pretty stuff and know what it looks like and be able to recognize it. So
Okay.
that'd be it.
So let's talk shows. We kind of touched them before. You do the CBREs. There's a couple other, like I've seen you go to a couple of shows recently. What's some of your favorite moments or like some things that really stand out at the shows for you now?
Just seeing my friends. I mean, I'm sure it's the same down there. When I started going to these expos, I didn't know a single person. Now I'm friends with the entire building. I mean, the security guard does not stop talking my ear off when I come in and out every time. I know every life story that guy has right now. The girls who are in charge of giving out the wristbands, I talk their ears off, they talk my ears off. Every vendor along the way, it's just a huge family, man. And some of them, the ones that have been there the longest, we're like a real tight-knit family. So, when we're in the building, there's 7, 8, 9 of us, and it's a camaraderie, the brotherhood. How often you tell a friend, "I love you, man." We do that all the time. Love you, bro. It's a real strong brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it. And I guess that's about it, man. Is my friendships I have with all these people. So I show up, and I'm not thinking about what snakes I'm going to sell, how many people are going to be through the door, any of that. I'm thinking, oh, right on, Jason's here. Oh, right on, Manny's here. What's going on, bro? And it's a good boost.
Okay. Is there a story that like kind of stands out to you over the years that you've been doing this that you'd like to share from one of the shows?
It's going to be embarrassing for my show partner, but it was funny.
It's okay. I hope it's Foster. I really hope it's Foster.
No, it wasn't Foster. It's Chris Towers.
Okay.
So he hadn't slept for 2-3 days. He was putting together his first big CRB, and he round the clock ordering displays, banners, all this shit, man. And I'm talking no sleep for 3 days. And we got there and we had two long days to vend. And back then it was really popping. Everybody was there. And then somebody came around, wanted to see a snake that was in a bag. And we're running around. He gets a snake out that's in a bag, and he's already a little lightheaded. Man, we got to get something to eat. I haven't slept in 3 days. So he's opening up the bag, and he stabbed himself in the finger with a knife. And I seen it happen. I look over, I'm like, "Yo, right, dude?" He's like, "Yeah, I just stabbed my finger." I was like, "Yeah, I see that." And he's like, a little lightheaded. "Just give me a sec." And he puts the knife down, sets the snake down, goes down, takes a knee like he's at a football game or something. I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" So I think maybe he's thinking of something. He's just trying to hold on to it before he passes out. And he passed out, hit his head on the concrete, starts doing the chicken. I'm like, oh shit. No. So the nurse on one side, and I couldn't get her attention. I'm Sherry, and she couldn't hear me. So Brian Barchuk's selling T-shirts on the other side of us. "Brian." So he looks over, "Holy shit, what's going on?" I'm like, "You fucking fainted, dude." So Brian runs off and gets security and the show promoter and the ambulance with the gurney and all the paramedics and whatnot. Chris comes to. They're trying to get him to the hospital. "Dude, you could have a concussion. Your head's all fucked up. You hit the concrete." He's like, "Yeah, man, I know. Why's that gurney in front of the table?" And they're like, "Cuz, man, we were going to carry you out of here and bring you to the hospital." He's like, "No, man, there's people trying to get at the table. Do you guys know how much we're paying to be here today? Can you move that gurney?" So they move the gurney. Everybody leaves. Show promoter comes over. "Dude, you fucking whacked your head really good. You should go to the hospital." Chris is like, "I'll go to the hospital when this is done, dude. I paid like $800 or $900 to be here today. So if you guys can clear out, you're making my booth look really weird right now." So they left and we went on with it. But it was a weird experience, cool experience, and I'll remember it forever.
And we all have kind of that one sale that sticks with us, right? Whether it was one where we were like, we kind of got regret for selling it, or we were just like, I never thought I'd produce that and someone would get that. What was that experience for you?
Selling a snake I didn't want to?
Or just being surprised that you produced one and it moved?
Oh. I was surprised the Jag did so well after the initial rollout of it. So some of those, like I said, some of those Jags I had sitting in the wings for a year or two, just not showing them to people. There was a point where I stopped talking about Jag altogether, and Eric Walsh mentioned Jag or brought some Jags to a show down in Arlington, I believe, and he had the pinstripe problem. Nobody wanted to buy the pinstripe, so him and Tony from Hardwired there, they both recommended to get a hold of me, which is really cool of them. And I did a jag sale, 24 grand for 3 jags. And that surprised the hell out of me, because those were those snakes that most people complain about. What's going on with the hobby? What's going on with this gene? How come people aren't buying it? I've had it for a year and a half. Just chill, dude. Put it in the rack. Somebody will call you in the next couple of years looking for that exact animal. And that happened. It was a little bit surprising. Like, oh, right on, man. I was hoping that would happen. Don't even advertise this thing. Somebody messed up. Hey, man, do you have one? Yeah, I got 3. You want them? I'll take them all. And they took all 3. So
That's freaking awesome. Heck yeah, man. Let's so let's kind of bring it together. You found a way to turn your passion into a full-time thing. You obviously have a way with your animals. Like you connect with your rats, you connect with your snakes. The one thing that trips me out, and you were talking about this the other day, is your photography. Like, I think so many people aren't taking the time to really understand that art inside of it. Like, they can make the great animals or okay animals, but they don't take the time to really capture that animal properly. And if we've watched you over the years, you're always playing with the way you set your animals up, the way you're taking your pictures, how things are going. What's some of the things that you take into consideration when you're doing your photography? And then I guess this is like the camera nerd in all of us. Like, I'm very much so a Canon fan, just because I grew up on Canons with my family. So that's kind of what I'm comfortable with. But what do you like to shoot on?
So I use my Samsung telephone.
Okay.
I actually suck at taking pictures. What I do is I take 20 or 30 pictures, and I try to adjust every bit of lighting around me I can until I get it right. So that's why I've taken 30 pictures. I got one light on, one light off, one light pulled away, all 3 of them with different hues. And that looked good, sweet. If it didn't, then I'm trying again. If the reflection was wrong and there's a major reflection under that, I got to redo it. And sometimes it just doesn't work out. Sometimes 40 freaking pictures, damn it, I delete them all and just go on with my day. It didn't work out. So it's just taking a lot of pictures and taking some time. This tabletop gets a little beat up, so I like to varnish it down every time I take a picture of a snake on it. The whole putting olive oil on the snake, that's just, I learned that from moisturizing my scaleless snakes. And it's just good for them. You kind of got to do it up here in Canada, but it also makes them look good. And then I kind of include it. It's like a tattoo, you know, you put a varnish on your tattoo or some cream and it looks better. It helps amplify it. And I feel it does the same with the snake. Instead of light bouncing off the snake and it seems like a dull color, you actually get drawn into the deepness of the color. So little things like oiling up my snake, making sure my surface is clean. I do love plants. I think plants are soothing. I think everybody has this natural thing to where it's a good calming effect when you see or you're around plants. So I try and have plants in the corners of my pictures and stupid stuff like that. And the logo, I was never a fan of putting my own logo in the pictures. I was kind of self-serving. But I got tired of people trying to sell my snakes online, and my logo wasn't in it, and that's how they got away with it. So I started putting a logo in just about every picture now. So if somebody tries to sell something, at least whoever's buying it can get a hold of me based on the logo they see in the background and inquire a little bit.
Okay. I think that's smart. I remember when I first came in, that was a huge issue that we saw, was like all the scammers, or just even other people sometimes in the industry. They would come in and they would start putting off other people. Well, obviously it's a scammer still, but like, they even had their own animals, but they weren't making it. So they're throwing off other people's pictures. And then I feel like everyone kind of has their own look to their pictures. Like, I tend to fancy more of the darker vignette outlook on my pictures, but that's the way I like to see mine, because I like to focus solely on the animal. But
I agree with you that recognizable pictures is also part of it for me too. So with my when I take a picture of a snake on eggs, I always put my hand beside the snake. This is something I've always done. You're scrolling past, you see a hand right beside a pile of eggs. That's probably Mike's, and it'll be me. And it's the same with the wooden background or whatever. And Corey Woods, I don't like that blue background lit or whatever, but it does the trick, man. You know that it's Corey snakes every freaking time, and it's personalized. So that's part of it with me too. I try and have the same, close to the same background in every picture, so that before you even see the snake, you know that it's mine.
Okay. So we're hitting that point. Is there anything that you would like to tell people before we kind of close out and we let them know how to get a hold of you?
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I've got one video up on YouTube. I'm waiting for cooler snakes to get my second video, and that's about it. You reach out anytime. If you're just getting started, just stick with this. There's a lot of negative talk about the way the hobby's going up and down and whatnot. That just happens. Take it from me. I've been in it 10 years. It's a roller coaster. It goes up and down. But if you're in it for the right reasons, you love the snakes, and regardless of whether there's money coming in or not, you're enjoying the snakes, stick with it. We'll come out the other side better for it. And that's about it.
I'm excited to see that
watching.
YouTube, man. I looked on it. So it is in the links below. So if you want to see his YouTube and subscribe to it, it is down there. Make sure you go give it some love. I'm excited to see what you do with that. I think every breeder should have, whether it's just showing their clutches or whatever it is. I truly feel every breeder should take the time to actually do something on YouTube just to build that presence and kind of build that archive for themselves. You know what I mean?
I agree. When I came in, 90% of my learning was YouTube. So,
okay, man. Well, I really appreciate your time tonight. I got kiddos that are acting crazy, and I don't want to leave them on mama too long. They'll try for a football. But I'm gonna throw you in the back real quick, close this up, and then we can talk for a second.
Awesome. Thanks, John.
All right.
Thank
you so much. Y'all make sure you go give Mike from Blackheart Exotics and Mike's Rat. Dang, that's the second time I did that today. Mike's Rat Shack some love tonight. I appreciate y'all. Next weekend, we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to be celebrating a birthday here in the family. So we're actually going to move the podcast up. We're still going to do it, but we're moving it up potentially a couple of hours. So make sure you look out for the link for that. And if you enjoy this, hey, just make sure you give it a like, share this out. Let's continue to build up this steam this year. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next one. Y'all stay blessed.